Welcome to the Dose of Good podcast, where we celebrate good people and organizations working to make the world a better place. It can be easy to get caught up in the bad things going on in the world and forget about the good happening all around us each and every day. I'm your host, Aine, and I want to share these stories with you and give them the attention they deserve. I hope this podcast educates and inspires you and maybe even motivates you to share a dose of good in your community. Now let's get into today's episode. Today's episode features Friends of Aine. This organization focuses on grief, but more specifically, the grief of children. And it's not something that we really think about unless we have personally experienced it or been connected to someone who's experienced it. But I think it's very important that we talk about it more. In our society, we don't really, it's kind of taboo, it seems, to talk about grief. And I think that it should be talked about more so that people don't feel so isolated, but especially children who don't necessarily know how to process these things. It's great that Friends of Aine exists in order to help them navigate that and also for their mental health. So I speak with Christine Phillips, the co-founder and executive director and also mother of Aine, and let's just jump right into the episode. Today I'm here with Christine Phillips, co-founder and executive director of Friends of Aine. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Aine.
Could you tell us the story behind Friends of Aine and then what the mission is?
Sure. So Friends of Aine started back in 2013 in honor of our daughter, Aine, who died in 2010. My husband David and I had been able to find support for he and I through Compassionate Friends, who specialize in the loss of a child, and it's specifically for that reason. And so we were able to find support with them. But in 2013, our daughter Bella, who was almost 6 when her big sister Aine died, came to us and said that she felt like nobody understood her, and she kind of felt alone at school. And so we began a search for support for her, similar to the support we were getting at Compassionate Friends. And we were able to find a very small group that had been started by Home Health and Hospice in Merrimack. Long story short, that was a very abbreviated program, didn't have a lot of funding. But through a great relationship with them, we established the Friends of Aine Center and began fundraising to help support these programs, and came to find out that there was a bigger need than anybody knew. Okay. And so we went ahead and started our own Center for Grieving Children and Families in Aine's memory, to help people like Bella, children like Bella at the time. Bella's 20 now. And the idea is offering peer-to-peer support to these kids so that they don't feel alone and they have a safe space to talk about and tell their story.
And could you go into some of the services that you offer? You mentioned peer-to-peer support. Mm-hmm. I also saw on your website you have some workshops, training, and the grief backpack.
Yeah, we do. It's funny because everybody knows us as a peer-to-peer grief support center, which is fantastic. That's at our core. However, we branched out a few years ago because not all grieving kids can come to us. So how do we reach them? So we started our backpack program to get into the schools and offer resources to guidance counselors, teachers, any staff at a school, so they could have resources to learn how to work with and talk with and support grieving children in their environments. From there, we've now started in-school groups, which means we go in with a member of the school staff, and we run a 6-week group with the grieving students at that school.
Okay.
We're doing that in 4 different schools right now. We have 7 more on the docket coming up. So we're well entrenched now in the in this program of running these groups in the schools. But also the backpack is a big program. We're in 221 schools across the state. And we have a mission to be in all the schools by the end of 2026.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah.
And could you explain a little bit like what goes into the backpack and how that works?
Yeah, I can. Can I back up?
Sure, yeah.
Because I didn't finish all the other things we're
Yeah,
trying
no,
to do
please.
right now.
Yeah.
So there is the backpack program. You mentioned trainings and workshops, and we do those also. We do some virtual grief education courses. We do what we call a hug workshop, which is a help us grieve workshop for children who are grieving can come to us as a field trip and had the ability to have a nice workshop session with us for a few hours. We also offer those same workshops to other students who are not grieving but might have a grieving friend so that they can learn how to support their grieving person. We are in the community. We're going to start running programs in and among different community organizations. We have a community kit, which is much like our backpack.
Okay.
That's going into community organizations, again, all to help support grieving children in their midst. We'll be replicating our program eventually and hopefully taking it across the state and giving more centers, setting up more centers and having more opportunities for other areas. So in the backpack consists of basically a 6-week program. It has all the activities and the supplies you'd need, other reference materials like book lists and things that we use in our center that we feel are helpful. Also resources on how to talk to a grieving child or a grieving student, how to help yourself if you're grieving. But the biggest element of the backpack really is that the activities in it are set up so that a teacher in particular or a guidance counselor can just automatically have everything they need at their fingertips to learn and educate themselves on grief and how to approach the child.
Okay.
So it's really a one-stop shop for a teacher.
That's great that you offer that to them.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And why do you think learning about grief is so important, especially when it comes to kids?
That's a good question. I think that we are missing a population of children that aren't getting what they need for their mental health. The statistic for the state of New Hampshire is 1 in 12 children are grieving before the age of 18. And we're not a large state. That's a lot of children. That number doubles by the age of 25. Wow. And what we learned in our own grief was that it's a very isolating space. We don't have a culture that talks about death.
Yeah.
And we often call the children the silent mourners because they don't get or they don't know, in some cases, how to express themselves in such a situation.
Yeah.
It is a traumatic experience for them. And these are children who have lost a parent or a sibling. Could be a grandparent who's been raising them. It could be an aunt or an uncle. It could be a friend.
Yeah.
That we unfortunately have a lot of younger kids coming in because of friends having died. So they need a place. Peer-to-peer support is such a crucial element to the mental health of children. If you can walk into a space and recognize that there are people around you who understand and are going through something very similar and they get it, there's a relief. There's an immediate relief. You feel as if you fit in somewhere, and it eliminates that feeling of isolation and loneliness that comes with grief in particular, but with a child a lot.
Yeah.
We see kids, you might see children at a funeral. And it could be they're at the funeral for their mom or their dad, and they're off playing with their friends or their cousins or family or whatever.
Sure.
And they look like they're fine. Mm-hmm. And we make, it's a misconception that they are, but they're not. Yeah. They go in and out of their grief just like we all do.
Yeah. Well, and it's hard enough for adults to process. When you're a kid, you don't even know really how to process it, I wouldn't imagine.
No, especially depending on your age.
Yeah.
I mean, the younger you are, the less developmental ability you have to cope with something like this.
Yeah.
So the idea at Friends of Anya is that you get a space to talk about it safely, with total compassion and understanding. And, we work with a curriculum. We write it ourselves. And it is basically an 8-week program where every week you come and you do an activity as a group of like-age kids.
Okay.
And we work on an activity. We build that activity around a certain topic about grief. And we just explore and let them talk. Mm-hmm. And through the conversation and through the activity, it is one child really helping another child because they're sharing how they deal with things and what helps them. And we try to encourage them to talk about different coping mechanisms that they might have that they could share with somebody else. The idea is that they leave us with some of those skills, with some of those coping skills, so that later on down the line, when they are affected again in their lives by a very difficult, adverse experience, they will be able to utilize some of the skills they've learned.
Yeah.
And maybe make better decisions for themselves.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I just want to thank you for, making this available to children, because it isn't something that's really, I think, thought about or talked about much unless you've probably personally experienced something like that.
Right.
And until I heard of you, really, I don't know of other places that kids can go for this type of support. So it's really great that you're doing this for them.
Thank you. We are the only center, we're the only nonprofit in the state whose mission is dedicated to grieving children.
Yeah. And it's so important.
It is, and it's very needed. It's we consider it a public and mental health issue.
Yeah.
And we are an element of that continuum of care for children's mental health.
Yeah, definitely. How, if a school isn't already and wants to get involved in the process, how can they go about? Do they just contact you? Or?
Yeah, it's really easy to get to us. On the website at friendsofanya.com, and Anya is AINE.
Okay.
Or they can call us at any time. Kristen Cushman is our lead coordinator for the education side, and we would immediately get back to you and figure out how to work with you.
That's great.
Yeah.
And I also noticed on your site that you have a blog, and it looked like maybe it was different people that contribute to it, or could you explain a little about how that works?
Yeah, we do have a blog. Right now, the blog is being written by a young lady at Northeastern University.
Okay.
Her name is Kate Murphy. Kate came to us after she had done a TED Talk.
Oh, okay.
And so we just got together with her, had a great meeting, and from there on, we just have such a great relationship. She's a very, very bright young lady trying to find her way after her dad died at age 15.
Okay.
And so she writes about her experiences for us.
Okay, yeah, because I read a few of them, and just the few I read, to me were quite impactful. So, yeah.
Yeah, she's very, very good.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad we got to highlight her a little bit.
Yeah, thank
so.
you. I'm sure, Kate, this is for you.
If someone wants to know how best to support a grieving child, what would you tell them?
There's so many different things. The first thing would be a listener.
Yeah.
Be a real listener. Don't assume that they're okay.
Yeah.
And let them tell their story.
Okay. Thank you. How do you find those that need your help? Do they usually come to you? Do you have other resources to help you find those children, or how does that work?
It's really becoming a process of people are getting to know we're here.
Okay.
And so we do outreach through the schools. We do it through pediatricians' offices. We do it through other community organizations. But mainly now, I would say most of our families are finding us through, word of mouth.
Okay.
Yeah. We offer 3 8-week series during the scholastic year. So what that means is we do a winter, spring, and fall series of their each 8 weeks. And you can complete 8 weeks and register for the next 8 or take a break and come back later. It's completely up to you. It's open.
Okay, that's good for people to know. Thank you for sharing that.
Sure.
And what volunteer opportunities do you have available, and how can people volunteer?
Awesome. So volunteers, besides the staff at Friends of Aine, the volunteers are absolutely the most important. I should back up. I should say our families are our most important. And, of course, the staff and our volunteers. We have 44 volunteers that help us put on program every week.
That's amazing.
And, it is amazing. There are 2 facilitators in each group. And so we train them, and they commit to 8 weeks. And a lot of them stay and do another 8 weeks and just hang in there with us for a while and then take breaks. Yeah. But anybody can sign up for it. Again, on our website, there's an application there, or you can call.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
And I'll make sure to link your website in all the descriptions and everything so people can easily find that.
Oh, great.
So.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. What else would you like people to know about Friends of Aine, if anything?
I think there's a lot of things we'd like people to know about child bereavement.
Okay.
And grief in general. Because in our culture, again, we don't talk about death, and we have so many stigmas associated with death and how somebody died, and that we try really hard to just eliminate all of that. We are a place where you come no matter what your story is, and it doesn't matter your background, it doesn't matter your ethnicity. This is an open and very loving space for children to come and express how they're feeling. We do it because peer-to-peer support is so important and so integral into the health and well-being of a child. We do it because there's a huge need in this state. We are bigger than we appear. Reaching more and more people every day, more kids, more adults, and educating them on what grief is and what it looks like and how we can better talk to somebody. We're just thriving right now. And as an organization that's been around for a short period of time, actually, we're always looking to get the word out that we're here. We're always looking for funding and sponsorships and donors, and because everything we do for the grieving children and families is free to those families. Right. And we want it to remain that way. Yeah. I don't know if I answered that question right.
Yeah, but you actually made me think of something else I wanted to ask. Now, this will come out in early March, but are there any events or fundraisers or things coming up that you'd like to promote?
Yeah, we do two events every year.
Okay.
In March, on March 21st, Friday evening, it's our 9th annual gala,
Okay.
which is a really fun, believe it or not, it's very poignant but very fun. We find that grief and joy they coexist.
Yeah.
And so it's nice to be able to bring those two things together at this gala. So this year we're actually starting something new, and we are initiating an award called the Hug Award,
Nice.
which is Help Us Grieve.
Okay.
And our first recipient will be this year at this gala, and it will be Chris Sununu is accepting the honor this time because he's been instrumental in supporting the work that we do. He's been a great support. Yep. So there's that event. And then in August, on August 3rd, we host a children's triathlon, which is a hugely popular event. And we have a great time. We do it at the Bedford Town Pool. It's for kids ages 4 through 15 who want to swim, bike, run, and have fun.
Oh, nice. That sounds like a really fun event.
It is. It's a good one.
Oh, good. Well, I just have two last questions that I like to ask everybody that comes on. The first just being which nonprofit you think we should feature next.
Wow, that's a tough one because there's so many good ones.
I know, definitely.
If I could give you two, I would say Making It Happen.
Okay. I'm not familiar with this, so what do they do?
They're up in Manchester.
Okay.
And they do lots of things, but they're out there really supporting their kids in our community with different initiatives.
Okay.
And the other one would be CASA.
You know, I made a note of them because sometimes they send us bulletins and things, and it just popped in my mind. I said they'd probably be a good one to have on.
They need a lot of volunteers, so way more than we need. And so I often think about them. Plus, they're our neighbor down the street. Then there's also, the Child Advocacy Center, which is also needs.
Okay, great.
We all need support. The nonprofit sector in New Hampshire is big, but it's where a lot of our social services are coming from.
Right.
And so the support is greatly needed.
Well, I'll look into all those. That's what I'm finding with doing this podcast is I never realized just in our small state of New Hampshire how many nonprofits there are, but also the amazing work that they're doing and often on minimal budgets and with not a lot of help. So, I'll definitely reach out to them and hopefully we can highlight them as well.
Yeah, that would be good.
Yeah, and then the final one is a tough one, but whatever comes to mind, just an example of what is the kindest thing you've witnessed or been a part of?
The kindest thing I've witnessed or been a part of?
Yeah.
Oh, boy. We see amazing examples of kindness and compassion all the time at Friends of Aine with a child helping a child. And they don't even know they're doing it. I think I could tell the story of a little person who was missing her dad who had died and was very sad and decided that she needed to isolate in the group. And so she hid under the table in one of the group rooms. And without a word, another one of the little ones in the group went over and sat with her on the floor under the table and just rubbed her back. They said nothing.
Yeah.
But it meant everything to the other.
Yeah.
And I don't know, there's a lot of them. They hug each other.
Yeah.
They come in, they run to their rooms, and they're so excited to see one another. There's a lot.
Yeah. Well, that's nice to hear. And I think it's especially nice when people share stories about children because I think we don't give them enough credit sometimes
Couldn't agree
of
more.
how intuitive they are, how compassionate they are, and that child just had the instinct to go and comfort them in that way. I think that's incredible. So,
It is. It's a beautiful thing to see.
Yeah.
It really is.
yeah. Well,
These kids are working. They're working hard. What they're dealing with is a huge trauma in their lives.
Yeah.
And they're weathering it beautifully.
Yeah.
And they just need an opportunity to be together.
Sure. Yeah. Well, thank you for providing that for them. And thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me. It's been lovely. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. I hope that you enjoyed learning more about Friends of Aine. It's a very important organization, and I really appreciate Christine coming on to tell us about it. I hope that you will check out their website to get more details. If you're in the area, maybe you can volunteer, but it's definitely an important topic that I'm glad we were able to share with you. Thanks so much for watching or listening to the podcast and supporting it. It really does mean a great deal to me. I feel honored to be able to share these organizations and their stories with you. Make sure to never miss an episode by subscribing to the podcast as well as on YouTube. Follow Dose of Good Podcast on Instagram and Facebook. Don't forget to rate and review where you listen to podcasts so that more people can discover it. And until next time, have a great day.